Welcome to the show. My name's Amanda. I'm your host of Shifters Podcast. We're so excited you're here with us today, joining us live or listening in to the podcast. I've got an incredible guest for us today. You better strap on your seatbelt if you're driving. You better sit down if you're watching at home. We're going to have a fun show and a fun ride. And I'm going to open us up real quick with a quick intro. So, the world's best flow integration trainer. That is the training of that's you and me, to integrate into conscious flow control for dramatically, I said, increased focus and productivity. Yes, Clay has over 30 years of experience as one of the world's most requested adult trainers in every field he has touched. He started unconsciously training flow control in the U.S. Navy nuclear reactor operations, and then became the most requested trainer by Intel and other semiconductor manufacturing companies. So what sparked Clay knowing he actually has this ability to teach conscious flow control? Well, Clay managed to not only survive, but he didn't even crash when a deer struck his motorcycle when he was traveling a tad over the speed limit. And since then, he's leveraged that experience to become the world's best state of flow integration trainer today. Welcome to the show, Clay.
Man, it's great to see you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes. I mean, I just want to dive in. Clay, you've got such an incredible story. When you and I connected on the phone, I said, you got to be on the show. People need to hear about your story. Those that have been touched. Take us a little bit down maybe memory lane to where you got today. You've got nuclear, the Navy, and all these different things. So just take us on a little journey, and then we're going to dive into that deer story and everything else today.
Man, we've only got a few minutes.
I know.
That's kind of the part. It's like I've been alive a long time. Memory lane. Long story short, 12 years ago now, I realized every human being is addicted to the state of flow. We're all chasing the feeling of being in the zone. We want it. We fight for it. We pursue it. We spend billions and billions of dollars every year in the world economy, jumping out of airplanes, snowboarding, riding motorcycles, all that stuff. So it was about 12 years ago when I bumped into a famous author that I read his book right after hitting the deer. During that process of reading that book and integrating what was really physically happening in our bodies when we are in the zone, that's when it hit me. I've been doing this my whole life. Like literally, I've been doing this my whole life. I've been chasing flow my whole life, and I've been using flow in my training and in the way that I interact with people my whole life. Yeah, we can go. Lord knows I've got some sea stories. I know. We could go U.S. Navy. We could go Intel. We could go semiconductor manufacturing and talk about atoms and what's going on inside your computer. Like, yeah, I've got stories all day long.
Well, how about
big
this?
One is.
Yeah. Well, how about this? Because you talk about flow, and before we get too far into your story, because it all kind of intertwines together, can you talk about what does it really mean? Because I know people talk about flow and people say I'm in the flow or I'm in the zone, but sometimes I think that maybe not all of us really know if we are in the zone or what that really means. And maybe you can give us the framework for it.
You know, Amanda, right now I'm in the middle of this is week 2 of a 12-week class that I teach. And people are just realizing in that second week, once I've introduced them to some stuff and we've gone deep, and we talk for like 2 hours in this class about what flow is, and they walk away from it, and then they go experience their week in a different perspective, looking at their activities and trying to measure where they're at in a flow state. And the flow stages. And so they start tearing this apart. And like, I'm excited. We're like week 2, week 3, week 4. That's when people really start understanding what flow is. It is this, to keep it simple as possible, the zone. Every one of us has experienced flow state, work, play, sport, snowboarding, jumping out of an airplane. I said it. Basketball, baseball, football, pick a sport, swimming, running, throwing a javelin, high jump, sport bike, motorcycles, mountain biking. These are places that I can grab and say, okay, if you've ever experienced that moment where time kind of disappears and you're just in the moment, you feel like you're connected to whatever you're doing, that sense of self goes away. Well, believe it or not, right now, you and I are in a state of flow. You're doing what you do. You host this podcast, you share and you help people. I do the same thing. And you can tell I'm pretty fired up, and I'm deep. As this conversation goes on, I will go deeper and deeper in a state of flow. More of my self-awareness will go away, and I will be focused on delivering more and more. My sense of time will go away. You're going to remind me, hey, we got to go, because my sense of time will go away. So those are the two big symptoms, and what's physically happening in your body and in your brain as you go into the state of flow and as you exist in the state of flow. The exciting part is, in the last decade, they're really figuring this out. They're really, and I've actually recently, like in the last week, I bumped into someone and I've got an appointment set. Supposedly, they've got a device now that tells you if you are in or not in the state of flow.
Wow.
I can't verify that. I'm looking at it. I'm getting ready to order it. I'm getting ready to test it. But supposedly it's based on they're monitoring your breathing, which I'm not quite excited about. I'm more about, like, let's talk about pulse rate. Let's talk about what's going on in the brain. And that's what brings us to the technology aspect, is the ability for scientists and for doctors to crack open our brains with the fMRI machine and see what is happening in our brains when we are in states of flow. It's a clear shift in how your brain is working.
Wow.
And that's causing chemicals and all this other stuff to go on in your body. But it's a clear line, whether you are, I say it's a clear line, but there it is. I literally teach people how to measure themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 into the depth of flow. Because the deer story
Right.
would be my 9.5, 9.8.
Okay, tell the deer story, because I know I just like gave a little snippet. So because you were in such a high state of flow, and this is fascinating how our bodies will shift back and forth, in and out, how we have control. I think that's one thing that I do want to talk about after you tell your deer stories. How do we have control over our flow? Because that would be cool to just be like, okay, turn it on, I'm ready. So tell us the deer story. Tell us the deer story.
Well, I got to give you a warning. I can't give you that gift today in 20 minutes. The ability to turn it on. It takes about 3 months to actually develop the practices and get this stuff done. But the good news is, we're not talking about it. It's just 5 minutes. 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. You turn it on, you turn it off, you go about your day. The deer story. So I described how there's a scale of flow. So you can imagine, I'd been riding a motorcycle for about 15 years at this point. I was getting pretty good. I've been on a track on a motorcycle. Like, we're talking about a crotch rocket, a sport bike motorcycle. Believe it or not, I just touched it. That motorcycle literally sits right there while I'm doing this. But anyway, the motorcycle, I was riding the motorcycle, and I was an experienced motorcycle rider at this point. So I was pretty good. And I came out of a left-hand turn, and I got ready for a right-hand turn. Please note, at this point in my career, in my life, I'd done 175 miles an hour on that motorcycle. Okay. I was not doing 175. I had done it on a track in a controlled environment, right? Like a professional, like all that stuff. So I'm not advocating go do this kind of thing on the streets. I was on a mountain road. I was isolated. I knew the road. I'd been on this road many times. And here's the trick. I was getting ready for this right-hand turn. And in doing that, you transition your body from the left-hand side of the bike to the right-hand side of the bike.
Mm-hmm.
I glanced down and I saw I was doing 95 miles an hour. And I knew that I was going to go into this right-hand turn that was coming up, and I was going to turn and I was going to roll on the throttle and I was going to increase my speed about 15 miles an hour. I don't want to go over 100 miles an hour, so I purposely set my speed to 85 miles an hour. Unconsciously, now that I know, after reading the book, and I've been doing this for a decade now, there's this limit that we all have, and that limit moves around. This is the reaction threshold limit. So if I do a thing where I poke people in the eye, that makes your brain and makes your body react. If I poked you in the eye or I flicked on your eyelash, you're going to blink. You can't not blink. That's that limit. When your body does something out of your control. Well, where are you operating? At 95 miles an hour, I was operating closer to that limit than at 85 miles an hour. If it would have been raining, I would have been closer or further. My point with going to this detail, Amanda, is this, understanding this, controlling yourself and placing yourself in the right place so that you can go into flow but not hurt yourself is the trick. Because safety is a big deal. So I come across, I set my speed, I'm getting ready for this right-hand turn, and everything was great. I was already in a state of flow because I was riding my motorcycle. Probably, if I were to put it on a scale, probably about a 7 or an 8. I wasn't riding really aggressively. It was a beautiful day. I was enjoying the weather. I was enjoying the sun. I was on the way home to see my girlfriend, and we had a date planned that night. Everything was great. And then all of a sudden, literally this far away from me, deer eye. It was about that big around. It was a big brown eye. All I saw was the eye. And I saw the eye. And I was like, well, I'm going to die.
Wow.
And then I was in this other state. I was aware of what happened. I felt the neck break. The deer hit my motorcycle right in front of my throttle. I felt its neck break. I felt its warm body wrap around my leg. Oof. I didn't feel the handlebars go 90 degrees, and I flew 13 feet through the air that way, 6 feet that way, and landed. I did, and anybody that's ridden a motorcycle knows what a tank slapper is. It's the front tire trying to correct. And what it turns into is like a bucking bronco. I did half a dozen tank slappers. I did not process those because they were not important. But my brain shunted that, but it showed me some important stuff. And I actually took some actions, and we don't have the time to go into the detail right now. I don't think we only have like 10 more minutes, right?
Right. Wow.
But the details of what happened, I did a lot of things that kept the bike up, and I went around the turn and I parked the motorcycle. I went back, took some pictures. I bought a GoPro I found the book, The Rise of Superman, and I bought a GoPro the next weekend.
Wow.
But the bike was destroyed. The bike was destroyed. I took photographic evidence. I understood why and what happened with the crash, but the way that the brain was operating and the symptoms that I analyzed after the event, that's what told me how deep in a state of flow I am.
Wow.
That's part of the process. Today, in the class that we're working on today, like I said, we're in week 2, and the single most important thing I'm teaching people how to do is set a timer. I'm going to work. So here's the how-to. You want the how-to? One, you've got a PDF download that you can get. Go get that. You want to learn how to get in my class, all that stuff. Here's the bottom line. set a great goal for your work session, set a timer for your work session, and when that timer goes off, stop and make sure the goal has to be achievable. And when you're done with the work session, allow yourself to come down, physically separate, take a note or two, write a sentence out about why you're grateful for that work session. Those are huge things. If you write the goal down, start a timer, when the timer goes off, stop work. It's vital. I've taught people how to do this, and they've gone into flow for 3 weeks straight. It was bad.
I was still productive.
They weren't in my class. They had watched a bunch of my free stuff, and they went and they put themselves in a state of flow for 3 weeks. It was crazy. Anyway, that's the deer story. Survived the deer story. Didn't crash.
You didn't crash. You told this whole story, and you flew in the air, did all this stuff, and you didn't crash. You were able to hang on and get all the way through and get off the bike, go back and take a picture of what happened and still be able to, did you call somebody or did you drive back down the mountain?
Well, the bike was destroyed.
Okay. So you had to call somebody to come help it.
The reason, so I was going 85 miles an hour that way. The deer was running completely perpendicular up an embankment from a creek, from a river, up an embankment, across the road, and it was going to go up a cliff. And it was hauling. So the 13 feet I went 13 feet that direction and about 5.5, 6 feet horizontal because of the deer's force. So it was insane. I can't. There's only. Yeah, it was great. It was a good time.
But now you're doing incredible things with it. You're able to help people. And I think that's one thing and you got into this after you said you were doing it naturally, didn't know you were doing it. Now you are working with people on how they can. You just gave us a few nuggets of the house. So if you missed and you're picking this up later in the video, go back and listen to the house. But really, to really understand it so you don't potentially hurt yourself and go into flow for too long, there is a process to it. What is there anything else about this or anything about your shifts in life that we could talk about? Because I just find it so fascinating what is possible and how we can use our experiences to really make some great stuff happen.
Wow, you just touched you just hit me deep with that question. I love how, like, I do interviews and I teach a lot, and every person that asks a question, similar questions maybe, but they're different and they hit different. Couple things popped up for me. One, yes, I'll tell you about flow in a second, and thank you for pointing it out. Key word that I really want to point out is safely. Safety or safely. When we start talking about managing flow, basically, if you haven't seen it, there's a movie called Limitless, Bradley Cooper. If you haven't heard of it, there's this drug called cocaine. The chemicals that we're playing with in our brain when we start controlling flow are the same chemicals that cocaine releases, except we're doing it naturally and we're kicking ourselves harder. So cocaine will give you so much of a hit, but when you go into a deep state of flow naturally, it's like 10x whatever cocaine can do. So it's addictive. This is flow state is why young athletes hit the big leagues and then they go spend millions and millions of dollars doing really dumb stuff. Flow state is why musicians come off of stages and shoot up with drugs, because they're trying to stay in that incredibly high zone that they were in when they were performing. And that's the key thing that came up when you asked that question, Amanda. You can't. The physical body has to recover. There's 4 stages to the state of flow. And by the way, one more one more flow addiction thing that I want to warn people about. There's really good reasons to be in flow. This podcast, having fun on a mountain bike, whatever you want to do, riding a motorcycle, making love to your partner, spending quality time with your kids, pushing them on the swing. Those are awesome reasons to be in a state of flow. A tornado coming out of nowhere, a terrorist incident, hang on, there was another one I was going to say. A fight with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife or your kids. These are all flow-inducing triggers, flow-inducing situations, but you can label them as bad because you don't want to get your good dope hit, your dopamine, your endorphins, and your adrenaline. You don't want to get those hits from a fight when you're causing damage to each other. So conscious flow control,
right.
it gives you the hit when you're doing it on purpose for a good reason. Oh, got a really good story about a coder. Remind me of that in just a second.
Okay.
And here's the key thing. When we start talking about flow control, they've delineated 4 stages in the state of flow. So what that means is there's actual steps, there's biochemical things happening in your body during 4 distinct stages in a flow state. Stage number 1 is struggle. The easiest way to give you that example is, are you trying to build a business? If you're trying to build a business right now, then you're succeeding in building a business. Or you've got an important job interview coming up or a job review coming up. Either way, you're thinking about it. You're worrying about it. You're thinking about your employees. You're thinking about your boss. You're thinking about your team. You're thinking about the budget. You're thinking about the resources and how you're going to get the things out of the resource. That's the struggle. That's the anxiety. Am I good enough for my husband or my girlfriend? Am I good enough for my kids? Am I failing my kids? The anxiety part of that anxiety, that frustration, that's the struggle phase. It's necessary because if you didn't care about whatever it was, you wouldn't be able to get into a state of flow. The release stage. So struggle, first is struggle, second is release. Release, it's easiest to talk about release when it comes to sports. Let's say you love basketball. So you're thinking about the game tonight because it's going to be a tough game for whatever reason. Well, you're worried about it as you're driving there and you're doing your warm-ups, but then it's time to put on your game shoes. So you sit down and you actually are physically lacing up your game shoes and you're getting ready to go play the game. Right now, you're putting on your knee pads, your elbow pads, or whatever you're doing. It's this time when your brain is focused on something physical that requires some dexterity, so that the focus is not on the struggle, the worry stuff that you were worried about. You've released that, and your brain has this space to be free by focusing on tying a shoe or lacing up a boot for a motorcycle ride. The next stage is flow state. So you go through a struggle, you go through the release, and then when you're playing ball, at some point, click, you're in it. If you go back and you watch this interview, there was a point where my enthusiasm has plateaued. Like we started off kind of slow, maybe relatively slow because I'm pretty much on all the time. But then all of a sudden click, and it became clear in my voice, my body changed. You'll be able to see that. So I released and I went into a flow state. 4th stage of flow. And that's where, by the way, that's that point where the timer matters. Set a timer, write down a goal, set a timer. The setting of the timer is kind of manual. And then you release and you drop into flow state. Then the timer goes off. And this is the important part. recovery. So struggle, release, flow state, recovery. Recovery means you're coming out of a state of flow. I just got finished telling you, flow state is the most addictive thing on the planet. It is more powerful than cocaine and sugar combined. And you just left that state. Your body wants to be back in that state. Your body wants to be in flow state. Everything in you says no, ignore the timer. You're going good. Keep going. Keep coding. This is awesome. Whatever the task you're doing is. That's one of the hardest things to do. That's why it's so important that you do it. But here's the thing. You come out of flow, notice out of the 4 stages, flow state is that great feeling, the third one. There was a period called struggle and there was a period called recovery, right? And in both of those cases, you do not feel the same as you feel in flow state. In flow state, it's this magic, incredible stuff. And in the struggle, you're worried and you're anxious. And in recovery, you're pissed and frustrated because you're not in flow. You asked the question, Amanda, a few minutes ago. This is the answer to that question. I can't remember the exact question. Learning how to recognize and appreciate the down moments, or loving the struggle, loving the fact that I'm exhausted and I don't have the energy to do anything else because I've given my all to something. Learning how to appreciate those down times is the big, important part of life, in my opinion. And that was the answer to one of your questions. Yeah.
Awesome. Woo.
Do we have time?
Do you want to share the coder story, right? You wanted to share the coder story. Okay, do it. Let's do it.
This is so exciting. This is so exciting. So I'm working with this guy, and you guys can see him on my website, on my testimonials. His name is Trevor. Love Trevor. Awesome guy. Wonderful guy. Working together probably about, at this point, around 7 months. And this is in a one-on-one situation. And I had been teaching him flow control. He's a coder. That means that he literally solves problems and creates worlds. Like it's insane what coders do in their minds and how they work. I understand a lot of it, and it's like it's crazy. All right, so out of the blue one day, we're talking in a meeting, and he says, "You know, Clay, it hit me the other day. I haven't played a video game in 4 months." What? I was like, we haven't talked. Not one word in any of our conversations up to that point had been about video games. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Why are you telling me this? Like, it has nothing to do with our work, your business, your marriage. You know, we're not your father, not all the, nothing to do with that. And what it turns out is Trevor had played video games for at least 90 minutes a day since he was 8.
Wow.
And he was in his 30s. So this guy has been addicted to video games his entire life. And 90 minutes would be a short day for him.
Right.
Right. But for some reason, while we're working together and he's starting to recognize and honor the 4 stages, he's starting to consciously control entering and exiting flow in his work. Once he started doing that, I keep tapping my arm like I'm getting shots of heroin. He started getting his hits of flow state from his work at this deeper and deeper and deeper levels. So he wasn't drawn to go get flow in this other way, because heads up real quick, in case you didn't know, video games and social media are nothing but the greatest masters at inducing flow state in you almost instantly. So That's how they addict people. So that was a shocking side effect from working with me. And it just blew me away. If you just think about that, 90 minutes a day at least 5 days a week, wife, kid, work. He had a job and he was building a business. It was just like the focus and productivity that he experienced went through the roof.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, the work you do, it's awesome because so many people, I know there's so many out there, they just love to have more focus, more productivity. You know, the days just seem to go by. And I've even said, you know, if I just had another 24 hours in today, that would help me get a lot more done. But maybe it's switching that and just becoming more productive throughout the day in smaller increments and seeing what might be possible. But I think that you've got something that everybody can use no matter what, no matter if you're in a business, running a business, in a sport. It's so flexible. And you can use it for your entire life. So hats off to you. But I would love to know, because you have been in flow and you've been doing it unconsciously and consciously now, what keeps you moving? So in your world and in your life, Shifters is all about moving. So what keeps you moving every day?
What is my big reason?
There's no parameters to how to answer.
There's so many. I see. What keeps me moving?
What keeps you moving?
You know what? About 4 or 5 years ago now, we entered the mobile lifestyle. So basically these days I'm focusing primarily on business owners that have successfully built a business to a certain point, and they're realizing they're kind of plateaued and they're at that point. It's funny, Amanda, a significant portion of my clients end up being people that I do interviews with. It cracks me up. I love it. But anyway, so call me, we'll talk.
I know, right?
What keeps me moving is I am so thankful and I'm so grateful about my life. 4.5 years ago, we were coming out of that whole 2008 thing. I mean, it was more than that, but long story short, I went mobile. If you haven't seen it, I live in a 45-foot long freaking luxury fifth wheel. That's why I said my motorcycle's right here. I'm literally in the garage of my fifth wheel, which is also my office. I've traveled across a lot of the country. I've explored. I am sensing the freedom that I always craved. I'm experiencing it, and it is insane, and it is amazing, and I get to taste it every day, and I'm so thankful. And it's directly connected for me. I've realized it's directly connected to the fact that when I'm having a meeting with somebody, I have meetings scheduled all day today. In those meetings, my clients are going to say thank you. It's that you literally get what you want in life by helping other people get what they want in life. And the feeling of appreciation, the more I feel like they appreciate me, the more I appreciate more of my life. And so it's this synergy that I'm just so thrilled to be experiencing. I wake up every day asking myself, what am I grateful for? And the list just doesn't stop. And I'm thankful. So that's what keeps me moving.
Love it. I love it. And physically moving. You're not only moving in your business, you physically can go wherever you want. That freedom to just go and be and live. A lot of people desire that. So it's incredible to hear you're living it and enjoying it. And thank you so much. I'm going to say thank you to you. Thank you for being on the show with us today, Clay. You have definitely brought quite a bit to listen to. I hope people go back and listen again, get connected. So how do they get connected to you? Because I know some of those who are watching this or listening are going to say, well, I want to be able to get into that flow state. I want to be able to be more productive and more focused. So how do I do it?
So first off, thank you. I want to thank you. You, and from what I understand, your husband are doing things that I can't do. That I've tried to do a podcast. I've tried to do some of this stuff. So honor and appreciation. I love the fact that there's this synergy. I love it. Second, the best place, the easiest place to find all the answers right now is consciousflowcommunity.com. Consciousflowcommunity.com. On that website, you're going to get 3 opportunities. Opportunity number 1 is the enabling habits. Opportunity number 2 is the flow ebook, how to get into flow. Opportunity number 3 is the Conscious Flow Control Masterclass. Apply for that, and the next time we have one, we'll reach out to you. Those enabling habits, we didn't talk about them at all. They're kind of boring. Most people think it's like, well, wait a second. I know I do that. I got those.
But those are the nuggets, right? They're probably like the unseen nuggets that make everything tick just a little better, right?
The devil's in the details, man. You got to master that stuff. It's the little things that get you. Yeah. So check out those 3 habits.
And we'll add the links. Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for your kind words. And definitely, we're going to put the links in the description below once we get this all wrapped up and all looking pretty. And it's going to go out across all the podcast platforms. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it, we're there. Right? Point your fingers. And definitely reach out to Clay. And it's Enthusiast. I'd have to say it's Enthusiastic Clay, right? Say your business name.
I've got 10 years ago, when I started my business, you asked that question, what's that thing about you, Clay? What's that thing about me that makes me different?
Yeah.
Everybody came back and said, your enthusiasm. So I started a website, Enthusiastic, Lay, enthusiastically.
Yeah.
It's just a spell.
But it's got really your name in it.
It does. Enthusiastic, 1CLAY.com. My email is clay@enthusiasticclay. But consciousflowcommunity.com, that's where I'm heading. And that's where I'd like to point. Oh, yeah, that's the easy one. Conscious Flow Community.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on now. And your title is Chief Enthusiasm Officer. Come on now.
Amen.
I love it.
In case you didn't notice. Yeah.
I know. Well, thanks for bringing the energy. Thanks for bringing the flow today. This was an exciting show, and I can't wait to go back and watch it myself. And we will be in touch. I'm sure there's great things coming. And thank you again for watching today. Thank you for those that are listening in. We are here live every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Our next week's show is Charles Reed with Get Payroll. So if you want to learn everything and all the details about payroll, come. It's going to be an exciting hour. And also, he's got quite a story on how he got started in this industry. So can't wait to have you guys join us. And by the way, for those that are listening, Friday, we're going to go live audience style. Yes, that means you can join us live. You can even, I don't know if Clay will be able to join us, but 10 a.m. Central Time, we are going to be talking about the show today with our audience, bringing you guys all together and seeing. We've already got people signing up. So join us, come talk, come share. It's recorded, all audio, and it will be posted on our podcast, Shifters Podcast. So we're going to get out of here. Have an amazing day. And for all those listening, keep on the move.